On this AVNation special, we get an update on AVB and AVNu Alliance with Byam and Package, newly AVNu certified Package. We talk about residential, we talk about networking, and we talk about putting AV on the network. All that and more next on this AVNation special.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is an AVNation special, updating audio networking. It's Tim Albright with AVNation with an AVNation special on networked audio. I'll be your host today. With us, talk about networked audio and all things with that, especially AVB and TSN. First and foremost, my buddy and pal and one of the smartest guys that I know. His name is Zach Snook. He works for a small company called Byam. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. How are you doing, Tim?
Doing good. You guys have had some excitement over the last couple of weeks, so
yeah, it's exciting times at Byam.
It is. Also with us, his name is Nathan Lane. He works for Package by Control 4. Is it Control 4 or is it Package by Control 4?
It's a Package by Control 4.
There we go.
Package is a networking brand of Control 4.
All right, there we go. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I am not a shy person when it comes to networked audio, nor am I a shy person when it comes to my fandom of networked audio and pushing everything on the network as much as possible. In fact, when I was right before recording this, I was actually at a job site helping a company do just that. But here's the thing: we the last couple of years, and I say couple, it's actually been about 6. I think since the very first time I ever heard the term AVB. AVB and the AVNu Alliance, which is the overarching alliance, which is connected with IEEE, they have made some changes and some name changes and a little bit of a direction change. So what I wanted to do was sit down and say, okay, where are we at? Right, going into 2018, where are we at, and where is this ubiquitous and agnostic technology going? Zach, I'll start with you on this. I guess the simplest question is, are we still calling it AVB, or are we calling it TSN, or are we just referring it to AVNu or AVNu certified?
Well, all of those things could be held true. I think really it's a bit of a history in the way that the protocols kind of evolved. AVB was sort of the first iteration, and that's when the original protocol was sort of defined and ratified. Once that happened, and it was obviously written due to the name with audio and video components in mind, but once that happened, other industries sort of took notice of that, realized some of the benefits that time-sensitive networking can have in play. So basically the synchronization and the guarantees of network delivery that ABB offered were appealing to other industries. And calling it audio-video bridging when you're talking about an industrial control system doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So they actually changed the name a little bit, but with that, they actually ratified some of the standards as well and sort of tightened tolerances. So what was good enough for the audio-video industry and what we can perceive in our eyes and ears wasn't quite up to the tolerances of what some other industries needed. So that ratification also happened at the same time as that name change. In the AV industry, it's still AVB, it can be AVB TSN, it can be TSN, but really, the AVNu Alliance is what holds that together. So when you see a company that's part of AVNu, whatever respective industry that they're in, it's the AVNu certification that kind of carries you through there.
Yeah, and I actually neglected my own duties. I should have defined all of those acronyms. AVB is audio video bridging.
Right.
TSN is time sensitive network.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, Nathan, you guys, Package has come out with an actual AVNu certified switch. Why is not just the switch itself, the fact that you guys can route AVB traffic? Why is the certification important to you guys?
Really, for us, the certification is important to partially to be taken seriously in the space with this technology, which you could call new in terms of other audio over IP solutions. Since it is a newer technology, there's other players out there that do have AVB switches that are not certified yet. And, it's known out there that it's still kind of a patchwork of AVB devices, but they are slightly more proprietary to their own switches, their own endpoints, those kind of things. So the goal the package always has is being able to create networking hardware that is not specific to any one solution, any one vendor, being able to work well with everybody. So having that certification is something that we're able to put the kind of the stamp on it and say, we can say that we're playing alongside everybody else that is also really serious about making this the best possible experience and solution.
Well, yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, either of you, but there's only like 2 or 3 companies that have an AVNu certified switch. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Of course, Extreme Networks and now Control4. There's no other major, specifically switch manufacturers yet.
No. Zach, you guys at Byam did something that I found exciting, again, as a fan of ABB. And the main reason I'm a fan is because I love the idea of the agnostic part and being able to send, the audio and the video over the network. Byam, a 40 some odd year old company that has done some really cool things in audio, took the V part seriously, right? And that's been the knock on AVB, right, for a couple of years, was the fact that there was no video in AVB. Byam took it and said, okay, you know what, let's do this. Let's do video. And then you guys did that through the Tessera line. What was the thinking behind that, and behind saying, you know what, yes, we're Byam, and yes, we are traditionally an audio company, but let's make this video happen as well?
Well, Byam has always been sort of an advocate of networked media, right? Way back in the days of Cobernet, we were heavily involved in that. So running media over a network was not new to us. Our customers were using us for their audio processing, audio routing and delivery. It was sort of a natural progression for us to move into the video aspect. And, we felt that our move into that should carry that network media stance that Byam's had further. So it's not like, we may have come out with video support recently or within the past year, but it's not like that just happened overnight. So our move into looking at AVB happened years ago when Byam first started this concept of how can we make audio and video together as a single component within a single platform umbrella using the network. And naturally, AVB kind of led the charge there for us because it did offer audio and video, or had the potential to offer audio and video. And having that under one platform in Tessera is important to us and important for our customers to be able to not look at system A and system B and then try to make them converge and work using different software suites and the like. We have the one platform in Tessera, but we also now have the one protocol. And that protocol allows us to send our audio and video together on a network, timestamped with guaranteed delivery. And what becomes very, very important to us and what was most appealing is that synchronization of both audio and video. So we place them onto the network with the guarantee that when we pull them off, they are going to be arrived in sync. And under one platform allows us to sort of maintain that soup to nuts from the point where you input audio or video and when you output it. You may have a camera that inputs video and a speaker and a display that outputs, and we can be synchronized across all those components that are part of the overall AV system. So that's what led us to, looking at video, and then that's what really made us a proponent of AVB, was the audio and the video bridging.
I want to talk a little bit about certification for a second, and leads us into a different conversation here. And Nathan already kind of talked about this a little bit, but Zach, is from your standpoint, because you're also heavily involved in the AVNu Alliance, but also from Byam's standpoint, why is certification? Why does that matter? Well,
I think it matters. Well, there's various reasons. One is sort of an end user or an integrator perspective. How do I know that device A can talk to device B? And there's different mechanisms of doing that. You could sort of all follow the same protocol and make sure that somebody else is in charge of that protocol. And there's platforms out there that do that. Or you could go and look at something that says, I will take that standard and certify the standard. And that's a group like AVNu. So if I'm an end user or an integrator or anybody that's looking to make media transfers on the network, and I look and I see an AVNu certified product, whether that's a DSP component, a microphone, a switch manufacturer, I know that there's compatibility built in there and that it's tested. The other thing from a manufacturer perspective is it really keeps you honest a little bit. We could go out, I mean, AVB is an implemented thing. And when we've gone through our certifications, you have to go out to the testing lab in New Hampshire is where we've gone, and you have to prove yourself a little bit and say, I can do the things that we are expected to do. And most people, including Byam, don't just pass that on the first time. You can get so far and you're like, okay, we didn't do that quite right, and we're back to the drawing board. So, having that standard isn't just saying, oh, we'll work. It's sort of a test bed to make sure that manufacturers are doing that part. Switch manufacturers, DSP manufacturers.
And it's also I'm going to say this wrong, but you can correct me on this. Mm-hmm. It's also a formalized version of a plugfest, right? And if you're not familiar with what plugfest is real quickly, plugfest is, especially in different protocols, it's where a group of manufacturers get together, especially if there's interoperability in the protocol. It allows you to plug your stuff into other people's stuff and make sure it works. Is that kind of what certification is in a more simplified version?
Sort of. It's almost the end result of a plugfest, because in the certification, how you're supposed to act. In plugfest, it's sort of exploratory, right? Like, I'm going to plug it in. Let's hope it works. The point of the certification is when you plug it in and you do it right, it's going to work. And that's sort of the difference of it. Now, that being said, there are many plugfests for AVB. Manufacturers that are part of the AVNu Alliance, there are AVNu hosted plugfests where we can go out with new product and new aspects of the protocol that are being implemented. And we can go out to somebody else and say, is this working correctly? And above that, I think those plugfests and the manufacturers being part of AVNu really allow the manufacturer some say in the standard development. So, if a group of AV manufacturers or industrial manufacturers get together and say, look, this protocol is great, but this thing could be better, they can ratify that. They can work with AVNu and go and say, this is what should be tested. This is what we need to make sure happens. So that's, yet another advantage of AVNu is the ability of an AVNu member, a manufacturer that is a member of AVNu, to have say in the development of the protocol moving forward as well.
Nathan, same kind of question to you when it comes to interoperability. That's one of the things that I still remember one of the first couple of years the AVNu Alliance had a booth at Infocom, was the interoperability. And I've told this story 1,000 times, and I'll probably tell it some more. But it was a Shure microphone going into a Sennheiser preamp, going into a Yamaha board, and getting sped out to a Pro Tools system. Okay. Mm-hmm. All over AVB, all over the AVNu Alliance protocol. When it comes to the interoperability and you working with your customers, how important is the ability to take, a Tessera DSP and be able to spit it out to a Meyer Sound speaker?
Yeah, no, that's extremely important, and that's definitely something that on the switch side, that's the area where we see the most concern, and certification is definitely something that helps with that because of the plugfest, and because of one of the aspects of certification is interoperability testing with all of the other AVNu devices that are out there. So going through that in certification is really important, but it's even something that I believe from a manufacturer side making switches, it's important for us to continue that follow-up and work with all the other manufacturers to make sure that we're always addressing issues, addressing any kind of interoperabilities that may come up in the future past a certification. That's something that we always work towards of working with companies like Byam to make sure that not only do our products just work together, but they work really well together.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Zach.
I kind of had a thought as Nathan was talking, as our discussion turned to interoperability, and it's an important discussion, and it's a very, very key discussion with the AV industry in mind. How can I take my DSP and talk to my microphone or my speaker or through my switch? But there's a whole nother level of interoperability that I feel that AVB really kind of offers, and it's network interoperability. I mean, the kind of look at AVB has convergence in mind, and convergence is what happens when you have things that go onto the network that are sort of unrelated. And in this case, probably the easiest way to look at it is media, audio, video, anything that is considered media, especially real-time media, which is important in the installed AV market. But then there's data, and that stuff lives on a network. That's where networks were originally designed. And really what AVB gives you is the ability to say, I don't need to ride a separate media network physically alongside a data network. The goal of AVB was to allow interoperability between traffic types on a network itself. So media can exist on a network with data. And the point of AVB is that's very regimented. We know the standards and the controls. There are levers you can pull to make sure you know exactly how that interaction is happening. And it's automated. You don't have to go in and configure a network to handle media that's going across it. There's interoperability within the network itself that the AVB process is automated. And that's a huge strength that's often overlooked in the whole AVB discussion, I guess, especially when we talk AV and we kind of limit our focus there.
Well, and the other part of that is bandwidth, right? And then that's something that we've heard a lot about from different segments of the AV industry, is you don't want to put things on the same network because it's, the video is going to suck up all of the bandwidth, and then the IT manager is going to be ticked off because they can't watch their cat videos or whatever it is they're trying to do.
Which is important.
It's very important, or watching AVNation, entirely up to you. Cat AVNation. But how do you respond to that, Zach, when you are having meetings with IT managers and you're pitching and you're evangelizing the benefits of this, and they're like, well, yeah, but you can just do your own private network over here and that'll be fine.
Well, I mean, that is an option, and that in some aspects that's an option that has been done a lot of times in the AV industry, but convincing, one of the trouble we have is when we go into a meeting with an IT admin and say, hey, don't worry about it. We're just going to throw another network in your facility and we're going to keep it isolated. We promise not to let it touch. We'll use the switches. We'll supply them. And they're going to be like, wait a minute, that is not good in our facility. We don't allow secondary networks. I don't want to see a little switch hidden in a rack someplace and then somebody asking me what to do with it. If it's on the network, it's my responsibility. Yeah. And having that separated network, it was done because of the fact that you had to manipulate a network in order to make this media transfer reliable and not to interrupt the cat videos or the AVNation podcast. You needed to work at it. And AVB said, well, we can automate that. We can make it to be something that you don't need to necessarily work for to get set up. So there is the bandwidth argument. What happens when I put video on there? Well, video on compressed 4K is a huge amount of bandwidth. Byam has looked at that a different way and how we can offer up some knobs, I guess, that you can turn to affect the bandwidth, and we are very bandwidth oriented. But there's more to that in the network transfer. There's sort of the isolation of traffic, and usually that's done in VLANing, but that's automated with MBRP and ABB. And I don't want to get too off in the woods, but there's traffic shaping. Media tends to bunch up a network and it can overrun a transfer, and traffic shaping and quality control is a huge part of ABB. And it's a huge part of network transfers in general, but with ABB, it's automated, it's set up, it's done for you. It's literally, and Nathan can probably talk to this very well, is a factor of enabling that on a switch and then allowing that to happen.
Yeah, it's surprising in terms of audio protocols and what's out there. The others, there's, you have to do some amount of configuration on the switches and then of course the same, bandwidth planning that you would have in any other case. But with AVB, there's an amazing amount of stuff going on in the back end, which makes the switch development difficult. But for the installer, somebody setting it up, it really is just turn it on and plug it in, and the devices and the switches, whether it's a package switch or an extreme network switch, Byam device or any other device, they just make the communications, they allocate bandwidth in whatever way they require. So that really is the amazing thing with AVB when you start setting up the system.
I actually want to take a slight left turn here, guys. And Nathan from PackEdge, and if you're not familiar in the commercial audio video world with PackEdge, primarily because that they have been born and bred inside residential. Actually, one of my dearest friends used to come down to your office awful lot. A young man by the name of Rich Fregosa, who has been in your office more than a couple times. How do you, or I guess I should ask this way, where do you guys see the convergence between residential and commercial, audio and video networking happen, whether it's AVB or what have you? Is there, I guess the best way to ask this is there a place in residential for this type of big, robust, long distance transport? Nathan, I'll ask you first.
Really, to me, I do believe that there is a place for it. From the way that we've always seen it at PackEdge, it's a lot of our dealer base, it mainly is residential, but there always were our dealers where they're in both areas, residential and commercial. So with those, we try to be able to provide the level of hardware that you would expect from enterprise grade hardware, but simple to use, that type of thing, and making that aspect of it, of enterprise grade hardware, but something that's simple to use, that works in the residential space and the commercial pro audio space. Because anybody in the pro audio space, they're not coming from a network admin background. That's not what they do. So that always kind of had been the position that we were coming from, at least from the networking switching side of things. For the actual technologies, we do see this as, even in the residential space, the technology video over IP and audio over IP, we really do foresee these things being something that's going to start growing more in the residential space. And you already see this with Savant. They are using AVB in a smaller capacity. But so there are some vendors that are starting to use AVB. And there's a lot of many different video over IP vendors that are primarily commercial, but they're starting to show up more and more in the residential space. So it's something that it seems like technology-wise, it gets really proven out in the large scale commercial end, and then these solutions kind of trickle down into the residential space with what we're primarily used to, of like very large home installs where they will be using really heavy-duty stuff.
Yeah, Zach, same kind of question to you. Is where do you see, whether from Byam standpoint or the Alliance's standpoint, AVB and TSN in the home?
I think what's maybe unique is the span across all really the pillars of the AVNu Alliance. Really, AVNu consists of people that have very different market needs and very different use cases for AVB, but the protocol itself in the background really ties this together. So, I think each market, whether it's industrial, automotive, consumer AV, or pro AV, there are needs and requirements that involve with technology. So as things move to the network, and that's not something that happens, in residential, you can put your refrigerator on the network and it emails you a shopping list, right? So moving the media within a residential system is onto the network is really no different than what the pro AV market is doing. It's a very easy way to distribute and route audio and video across a facility, whether that's a home, whether that's a convention center. It's really down into the versatility of it. And looking at AVB as a solution to that is really what kind of ties all these together, all the different pillars. So I think AVB's push into the consumer market is going to be a huge one. And I'm excited to see that PackEdge is sort of leading that charge.
Well, and it's something else that folks may not realize is that it may be in their lives and they don't know it, right? Because what was it, 2 or 3 years ago, Zach and I were at an AVB TSN conference, and they were talking about AVB in automotive. And there were a couple of significant car manufacturers, automobile manufacturers, that were starting to use it. So you may be using AVB and you don't even know it. Guys, we're recording this at the end of December, and all three of us are getting ready for ISE, our first significant, commercial and residential audiovisual show of the year. It happens in Amsterdam, 6th through the 9th of February. Typically, in the last couple of years, the Alliance and both Control4 and Byam have had education at locations like this, and Infocom and Cedia and your locations, obviously. Nathan, start with you on this. If somebody's interested in getting a hold of learning more about the AVNu Alliance or learning more about how AVB looks in PackEdge's world, how do they do that?
That's something that, as far as for the AVNu Alliance, definitely the avnu.org website is a great resource for learning about the overall what AVB is, how it works. As far as from the package side of things, they can go to package.com to learn a bit more about the switch side there. I'd say right now the website hasn't been updated much, so it's a little bit light. Aside from that, we're from what the switches can do, we're trying to work as close as we can with companies like Byam to make ourselves known out there. And a lot of it, I make myself available a lot for any kind of questions too. So that's something at ISE.
What sort of classes though does Package have for that?
Package has actually a certification course. It's not specific to the ABB aspect. It's much more of a low level, just the basics of networking, which is very important. But it's talking about pro audio and space and ABB. That's a whole other level, beyond what we're teaching right now. So yeah, as far as classes go, AVB still is kind of a higher level from what we have, and it's where we're teaching people about it. A lot of people that come to us, they already know what it is because they're coming from Byam and they know what's going on with it. So the education is primarily in letting people know about our solution and what we have to offer.
All right, Zach, same sort of question, and I will put a shameless plug here. My top 3 educational instances in the AV world, one of those was Byam in Beaverton, Oregon. So if you get a chance, make your way out there. But where else can people learn from Byam?
Absolutely. So from Byam specifically, we have moved a large part of our training into a web format. So the sort of initial entry level and then sort of the mid-level, we've got training, a whole training platform that you can take online. It's self-paced. There's tests you pass, you get a certification. So we offer that, and included in that, I mean, it's obviously a Byam training, but there's a significant portion on media networking, and obviously AVB is a part of that as it's sort of our backbone protocol for the Tessera system. We also offer a new sort of training in Beaverton, so more sort of what you came for, but now we get to have you back, Tim, if you want to come and join our AV lab, which is a new training session that we've come up. It's more of a hands-on experience. We have devices. You've set up a network. You literally set up an AVB switch from a blank configuration. So it's a deeper dive into sort of the day-to-day using and sort of manipulating of our equipment and the equipment that sort of connects to it. So we have that as well, and it's fairly new for us. It's been within the last year that we've rolled that out, and it's been really successful. In fact, just down the hall, there's a group meeting today. We also have some educational videos that are being put on our YouTube channel. So if you look at YouTube and then search for the Byam channel, in fact, there's a lot of information on there about AVB. There's a whole series of videos just kind of diving into this sort of unique components. They're intended to be sort of an introductory sort of short format thing that you can kind of walk through as a playlist. We also have support at byam.com, which is our cornerstone support site. It's maintained by our tech support team, and there is a wealth of information there on media networking, network setups, supported AVB switches, which we're excited to have Package now available on that website too. They're prominent there. We're excited to have them sort of as a partner for Byam. And then, if you're looking for education specifically, as Nathan said, AVNu.org, and then there is a education group within AVNu, which is made up of the manufacturers that are part of the AVNu Alliance. And at these major trade shows like ISE, which is coming up, we will be sponsoring training. So there is I believe it's a 2-hour training course this is probably like the 5th rendition of it. That's going to be at ISE this year. It will be Infocom again this year as well. And I've been involved with that for a number of years, and I'm sort of proud of the way that we've kind of grown that into here's AVB and all the great stuff, but we don't really give you all the information to kind of get in your head on a technical level. So we've kind of grown the technical side without getting rid of some of the basics. So you can really kind of get an understanding of what advantages AVB brings to the table and how the automation happens and what it means to the IT department and live demos. So I would be excited for anybody to come and sign up for that ISE class this year and check out what the AVNu Alliance Education Group, which is a multitude of manufacturers, is able to provide you there.
All right, very good. Actually, that'll be a nice end, a nice segue into if you're going to ISE. Nathan, if you guys are at Control 4 is in Hall 10, N is in Nancy 130. If they're not going to ISE, how do they get a hold of you, or how do they get a hold of PackEdge?
PackEdge, you can see us on the internet, just packedge.com. You can also reach out to me at nlane@control4.com. People feel free to email me. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well, Nathan Lane.
Nathan Lane.
That's the way to reach me.
All right, very good. And Mr. Snook, if you are people are headed to ISE, they can find you. Actually, you are in Hall 3, which is actually right next to Hall 2.
Makes sense.
No, it doesn't. Not at the RI, it doesn't.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
But you are actually right next to Hall 2. You're Hall 3, B as in Bravo 120. But if they're not going, how do folks get a hold of you or Byam?
So you can visit us at byam.com. If you'd like to reach out to me directly, feel free. My email address is zach.snook, SNOOK, @byam.com. And if you are able to stop by this year's ISV booth, come say hi to us. We're going to have some pretty exciting things to show you there as well.
Yeah, they have a new owner to show off. So
yeah, absolutely.
You hadn't heard Byam.
Very excited about that.
Purchased by Highland Partners about a week or so ago. So my name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me or go anything like that, but go by the website if you would, please, avnation.tv, avnation.tv. You'll find this program, obviously, and a host of others. We have a weekly program called AV Week, where we look at the news that impacts the audiovisual, the commercial audiovisual industry. Also, we have a one that looks at the home, the residential, hosted by my buddy Matt Scott, called Resi Week. You also find our underwriters there. Byam is one of them, and so we thank them for their support. These are the folks that help us do shows like this and help us go to ISE and bring that to you. So all that and more at avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching this AVNation special.